But then what kept you guys going with, I mean, because being in the Midwest, I mean, most things are happening in New York and LA,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, that happened. We played in club bands until the club band, it sort of wasn't going to do anything. And Kenny ended up working with some friends of ours in a group called Midnight Star.
Oh, yeah,
And
yes.
so he started going to Cincinnati. It was only 100 miles away. And, Midnight Star would come to Indianapolis and play in the clubs. So we met, Midnight Star would come, a group called the Deele would come.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
yeah.
was only 100 miles because our club scene was a little bit better than the Cincinnati club scene. So we became friends with Midnight Star, and Kenny became really good friends with a guy named Bo Watson, who played keyboards in Midnight Star.
Mm.
So he went there and was writing with Bo, and he and Bo wrote a song called Slow Jam.
Mm.
And the group Midnight Star was working with a new group called The Deele under their production company. So Kenny started working with them. They asked Kenny to join their band. After Kenny joined The Deele and they recorded, Kenny called me and said, "Hey, we've already recorded an album, but we need somebody to play on the road and you can write songs." I go, "Hey, I'm out of here."
Okay.
So I left and went to Cincinnati and joined The Deele as a band, as a side musician. I
Okay.
wasn't a physical member on the album, but I played on the albums and I co-wrote songs on the album, and that's where probably the songwriting really started to turn up. While we were on the road, me and Kenny in LA, we would just write, and when there was time off, we started writing and recording people, and one thing led to another, man. It was just, when it took off, it was crazy.
No, but you told us you were a drummer then, but then when you joined the Deele, I thought LA was the drummer. So what
He
did
was.
you?
I played keyboards.
Oh,
Kenny
so
wanted me to play keyboards and sing. Yeah, because I had bought a keyboard because I was learning. I was writing more from the keyboard.
okay.
So and so I gave up drums to play keyboards and sing. Kenny wanted me to sort of be out front and not be behind the drums. And so I said, I don't know about that. So okay, so I became a percussionist playing, congas and timbales like Maurice White did.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
sort of emulated Maurice and what Philip did. So I played congas and timbales and I sang, and then I added a keyboard just to play some really small keyboard parts. I wasn't the main keyboard player, but I could play some different little keyboard parts, and I kept practicing on my keyboard and working on my songwriting during that time.
How
Yeah.
helpful?
So,
How valuable was that learning to play the keyboards as opposed to the
oh, it
drums?
was valuable. It was valuable. I wouldn't have been the songwriter that I ended up being if I'd
Wow.
stayed drums. Yeah. The keyboard opened up a whole world for me. It really did. It really did. So it was career changing for me to play keyboard. And then Kenny played. So there he was. Kenny started playing more piano, and he was still playing guitar, but he was writing more on piano. Then therefore he was an influence to me. So he would show me chords and help me with my chords and the songs that I was working on. So it was a big thing for both of us. Actually, I bought a piano when I was 17.
Wow.
And I had it delivered. My mom goes, "What are you gonna do with that?" I go, "I'm gonna put it in the living room." She goes, "No, you're not." So me and Kenny pushed it in my front yard all the way around to the back of the yard to the den. And we put it in my den. We would work on songs. I bought this upright piano at a mall, and I put it on layaway, and I'd go and make payments on it. Yeah.
Oh
Yep.
my goodness.
So that was really the big start. To have a piano was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have a piano. Now I can write songs all the time, you know. So that's kind of what really started when I was about 17, buying that piano.
The thing
Yeah.
that you mentioned that when you joined the Deele was that Kenny says, "I want you to be up front and more in shot." What was his thinking about that? He didn't want you to be at the back and out of sight, or what was he trying to?
Yeah, it was just kind of like the other bands that we had. I played drums and I sang, and he felt like, I don't know if you remember now, Cameo, Larry
Yeah,
Blackman was the
yeah,
drummer.
yeah. I
And
remember
then
him saying that. Yeah,
what did Larry Blackman end up doing? He ended up being
the
out
front. Yeah,
front.
yeah.
Yeah, front guy. And he hired a guy. I wasn't the front guy, but Kenny wanted me out front.
Wow.
He wanted me more visible. You know what I mean? Like in the lineup, in the row. And I was like, okay. And so that was really he pulled me off the drums
Wow.
to do that. You know what I mean? And I thought it for a while, but it took a while for me to really get used to it because I was really introverted. And I
Yeah.
felt like I could hide behind the drums, like nobody was watching. Nobody's watching me, you
Yeah.
know. So, but it was cool. It helped me in a lot of different ways. You know, it really was cool.
I remember hearing Kenny in an interview talk about when he joined the deal that they was, LA was really instrumental in getting him in, but
Yes,
they didn't want him to sing. How did they
yeah.
receive you coming on board? Did they think, who are these two guys?
Uh, no, they were. I think they were okay with me because I was just a musician. You
Okay.
know, they knew I could play. I played percussion. I played well, and they liked what I was adding, and I could sing background. So I helped with the background singing. Uh, so I felt like the guys accepted me, and then I sang on the records. I co-wrote songs with Carlos and Dee and
Mm.
everybody. So I brought something. I wasn't there just hanging around. You know. Yeah.
Now,
So
most of us would also remember that you and Faith were in Manchild. How did that? How did you think that was going to be the break?
oh, absolutely, because we had recorded. Manchild had recorded a single when we got to the band. Kenny got to the band first, and I came a few months later. And then they were gonna do a full album, and so we were really excited about recording an album. And we did record an album, and it had some local, regional success, but it still wasn't like that breakout song like we thought was going to happen, you know.
Mhm.
And so then we did a second album, and I think the second album was even worse. Maybe I don't get me wrong, I don't know,
Yeah.
but in other words, the success didn't come like we thought it was going to come. You know, we started to figure out there's a lot more to it, you know, than just putting out a record. People think you put out a record, oh, you make a bunch of money and you have
Yeah.
this and that. It's like, no, we didn't have hits. We had a regional song that did okay, but it wasn't. And that's when the frustration started kicking in. We had been in the band a long time. We'd done a lot of things. And Kenny, he came to rehearsal one day, said, I got to go. He said, nothing's happening. He said, nothing's happening here. I don't think anything's going to happen. I got to move on. And I was devastated because we'd been together since about 14 years old. And here now, we both were probably 20, maybe 20, I don't know, 22, 23, maybe.
Wow.
I don't know, 24, maybe a little older. I can't remember. But I understood, you know, I understood how he felt because nothing was happening. But then I had a fear for myself because I was like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Because I knew he was going to be okay because he was so much more talented than I was, you know? And
Wow.
I wasn't developed as a songwriter at that
Yeah.
point, you know? So I kind of was really worried about myself. So when he called to come play as a side musician, that was like, okay, that's better than nothing, you know?
Okay.
And then, but that really helped me because that's when we really started to really get to work. He, LA, and I on all these side projects and all these records that you see. We
Yeah.
just rolled up our sleeves, man, and we just were just a record machine constantly, 24/7, and that was a lot of fun, a lot
Now,
of fun.
with the deal, they were signed to Solar, and
Correct,
Dick Griffey's quite legendary, as legendary as
right?
as Gene Griffin and Suge Knight.
Oh yeah, he's legendary guy,
Yeah.
legendary, yeah, yeah.
But for yourself, how much of this, and especially when you in these early days when you're not officially part of the group, how much of the business part were you able to learn from those early days before them?
Well, you know, I learned a lot. I was actually in a good position because I wasn't signed to anybody. See,
Mm,
they were signed to Solar. They were locked in with Dick Griffey. And, you know, Dick Griffey did try to sign me as a writer at one point, and I knew not to at that time. You know, I had learned a little bit, you know, Kenny and LA would advise me. So I just sat back and watched all the mistakes that they made.
wow.
You know, I'd sit there sometimes at a meeting or I'd be at the studio when they would meet with someone. I'd just sit there on the couch and I would be all ears. And so I kind of learned a lot from what they went through, you know. So by the time I started really developing or producing, I had a pretty good idea of what to do. And I hired good people, I had a good attorney and a good business manager. And so I kind of sort of didn't really miss a step. You
Wow.
know, a lot of legal things that they had to go through, I didn't have to go through because I wasn't ever signed.
Yeah.
I never signed a contract with anyone. I was always independent. I never signed a contract with LA and Babyface. It was always a handshake agreement. The whole tenure, we had like I said, just, okay, this is what we're going to do. Okay. And it worked. We trusted each other and it worked for me. So when it came time for me to break away, I didn't owe anybody. I didn't have to go through anything. I just went and started Silent Partner on my own.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you for being part of Halftime Chats. This new update is really about our membership, and I'm really excited to be able to fully launch the membership page. There will be things like full interviews from day one. As soon as the interview drops, you get access to it without any ads on it. There'll be some exclusive member-only videos that will just be some behind-the-scenes stuff and some other things that we will never be broadcast. For some members, you can be able to get actually 2 interviews, because I do have a backlog of almost 7 or 8 interviews that I don't even know when I'm going to be able to broadcast them. So you're able to get at least some of those up front, and some just behind the scenes stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes that I have never been able to talk about or release. For everyone else, you know what, the videos would still be the same. Over a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks, depending on how long it is. So everything stays the same. The polls stay the same. The community chats, the community stuff stays the same. But I think with the membership stuff, I'm able to add a little bit more and invest a lot more time and energy in really supporting the members. So I do hope you come on that ride with me. I appreciate the support, and this will just help me continue to invest in taking things to the next level. Take care.